Shalom, hello, and welcome to another session, that's class 5 of our 6th Day of Creation series, and the lessons that we can glean from it, from the biblical description of the 6 days of creation, lessons which can help us lead a more meaningful and purposeful life. For all your Torah for non-Jews needs, please visit our website, either BN, that's B'nai Noach, bnacademy.org, or torahfornonjews.com. Should you have any questions throughout this class, please do not hesitate to submit them to askme at Torah, Torah, torahquestions.com. Ask me at torahquestions.com. So, we're continuing from last week, where we began to talk about the creation of man. That is the creation of the human being, man being a neutral gender, of course, man and woman. As we know, God created us all as one body. And what happened right after creation? You see, we are this very, very, very special creature of God. Every creature of God is special. Everything in the creation is special just by the virtue of the fact that God created it. God found it fit to be here in this world. There's obviously a purpose for it. But there's nothing more important than us, than the human being. Of course, that's not to make us arrogant, rather to remind us of the important role that we play, the vital role that we play in the entire purpose for why God created the world. As important as we are, there is an unavoidable, distressing, sad, unfortunate saga that came very close to our creation, that happened so soon after we came to be. And that is, of course, we know, the sin of the tree of knowledge. This sin has many facets to it. Of course, one can peel away the layers of the onion deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper to get really an understanding and appreciation as to really what the Torah is trying to teach us. What are we being told by this? Because recall, and I emphasize this almost in every class, that the reason why God is sharing with us the details that he shares with us is not just to amuse us with interesting facts and information, but rather he is telling us how to live our life. He is teaching us through the means of the stories, through the various anecdotes, through the various details. He is giving us so many hints, so many direct and indirect messages. This story, the tree of knowledge. Now we understand, simply speaking, there's a tree, there are certain fruits. God says you can eat from the entire garden, just don't eat these fruits, whatever the reason is. Why is it important to us? Why is it important to know that this is called the tree of knowledge? The Torah, the Bible, keeps on emphasizing how this is the tree of knowledge. What is about it being knowledge, the tree of knowledge, that makes it so forbidden, that made it so forbidden, that really plays this integral part in this, a key role, so to speak, in this entire sin, in this problem that came about? Perhaps we can look at it from this perspective. And this is an important one. This is an important one in our relationship with God, in our relationship in society, in our relationship as citizens in any country, wherever it is that we live, and we're expected to be proper law-abiding citizens. You see, what was so much the desire? What was the temptation here? Just another fruit? There were thousands of fruits. There was a variety of fruits all over this beautiful garden, the Garden of Eden, the Garden of God. What was it that the man desired more? Well, as soon as the human brain, as soon as the intellect up here found out that this is called the tree of knowledge, and that when they eat from this fruit, perhaps we'll get a better depth, a better perspective, This made it so much desirable. This made it so tempting. This made it so uncontrollably tempting and desirable that man could not hold himself in. What is it? I'll tell you what it is. Man has a need, an inherent need to understand things, to know things, to really appreciate what's going on. We have an innate, natural, built-in desire, built-in thirst and hunger for knowledge, for why, to know, to understand. That's good. In fact, God doesn't discourage that. God wants us to know. God wants us to know things. However, there is a limit to that. There are things that even if we don't understand them, even if we don't fully appreciate them, we still need to act in a moral and ethical manner. We still need to do that which is right, that which is acceptable, and especially that which God wants us to do. And here was the mistake of the human being. You see, Adam and Eve certainly understood things. They had a mind like perhaps no other human being had. I mean, after all, they were created by God. After all, they saw things that we are not privy to, nor will we ever be, at least not in this life. They saw, they understood, they appreciated the depth of creation, and even had an understanding, a grasp of what God is all about. I mean, after all, God created them. Direct contact. They were told to keep certain rules. They were told to keep the rules of mankind. And they were ready to do it. But then suddenly a desire came up. Wow, I can understand it on a deeper level. I can appreciate it more. I can really make sense of it all to a greater depth. And man had this burning desire, this temptation to do so. God didn't want that. Of course, it's not that God wants us to go in the dark and to just follow things blindly, so to speak. No. We need to understand. We need to appreciate. Man has to continuously search for meaning. Man has to continuously search for the depth in everything. Not just be like a sheep or a sheeple. We have to be people. We have to understand. We have to use our minds. If you look at any totalitarian society, what they try to do is strip away people from their ability to think, from their ability to have an understanding of what's going on. They try to pull the wool over their eyes, try to fool them, try to mislead them so they don't see really what's going on. That's not good. We need to understand what's going on. We need to know. And thus, that leads us to have our true free choice. But at the same time, there has to be a certain point where our observance of laws, especially God's laws, of God's directives, is at a level of unconditional. This is the way it is. This is what we have to do. Just to follow orders. Just to have that acceptance of this is the rule and this is what I have to do. And it seems that the desire of Adam became such that he wanted to know it on a deeper level. He wanted to understand it on a deeper level. And that, sadly, would have opened the door. That, sadly, opened the door to a whole different perspective, to a whole different knowledge. And that knowledge brought about good. You can understand things. You can understand the good better, on a better, deeper level. But it also exposed man to that which is not good. It also exposed man to the alternative to good. It also exposed man to the option of the opposite of good. And this, sadly, is what God was trying to prevent us from. And unfortunately, we, by our own doing as human beings, we unfortunately breached that precautionary line. And that's a lesson for us. It's true, we need to understand things. We need to find meaning, but not to act only based on our meaning, not to act only based on our understanding, not to just go about life doing that which we understand and not heeding to that which we don't understand. There are rules, there are laws. Not everything at every time will make sense to us. Even laws that are made by mankind. I mean, there are so many laws. If one starts to examine laws of their society, that might seem to be absurd. But it's obvious that at some point, somebody who is a true legal expert, somebody who does understand the ramifications of various issues that rise up in society, saw fit and it made sense to establish that law. This is when talking about man-made laws. How much more so when it comes to God's laws? One has to have an unconditional acceptance and then try to understand to the limit that God allows us to understand. So that's one aspect of this sad, unfortunate saga, which we all are living the results of it. Now, another aspect of it. We all know, and I want to say we all know, but really it's a myth. It's really a myth. It's not true. That the fruit that they ate was an apple. Well, that's not true. It was not an apple. According to tradition, according to the biblical tradition, that is, according to the true sources, this, in fact, was perhaps, according to most accounts, was actually the fruit of the vine. Grapes, wine. That's what brought about the sin. They ate the grape, they drank the wine. And this, for that time, at least the way God instructed them, was a no-no. They were not meant to do it. Now, what lesson could this teach us? What could this serve for us in our lives? Is that to tell us that wine is not a good thing? Well, we know that wine has so many beautiful qualities. Wine is used usually as a ceremonial drink. Wine is used to give a toast and to wish someone well at a happy gathering, whether it's a wedding or birthday. Wine is used to bring people close together. And this is the lesson. It's not the wine that's good or bad. Wine, the fruit of the grape, of the vine, the juice of the grape, it could be the greatest blessing. It can bring people closer together. It can be the catalyst, the vehicle on which to bring blessings. But sadly and unfortunately, it could also tear people apart. It could also tear down people's lives. It can break down people's lives. Think about it. Somebody who has a problem with alcohol, somebody who has an issue, who has an addictive personality, who has become addicted, that wine, that intoxicating liquid could be the greatest and worst detriment. For the person who it's not a detriment, somebody who is not tasted it negatively, it can be a beautiful thing. It could mellow people down. It could have people enjoy each other's company. You know, I always use the joke. They say during family gatherings, how come there tends to be a lot of drinking? So a wise man once asked, is it to help celebrate? He said, no, it helps to help tolerate. When you're sitting together with family, sometimes you need an agent to mellow things out a little bit so you can tolerate. But in either case, it usually is synonymous with celebration. It brings joy. But the same wine can also bring to wild behavior. It can also, God forbid, lead to catastrophic results if one doesn't keep it in check. And if one, God forbid, celebrates by drinking wine and then operates a motor vehicle, that can be a detriment. That can become now a catastrophic tool. So the message that God was saying, it's don't look at the object. Don't make in this case, the grape, the wine, don't make it the culprit. It's you, the human being, what you do with it. Think about it. One of the most important things in everyone's lives, regardless of where you live and what exactly is your money base, whether it's on the dollar or the local currency or the bartering shells or the bartering diamonds, whatever it is. But money is perhaps the most valuable thing. And you can do tremendous things with it. First of all, sustaining yourself, your family, providing for your loved ones, giving to the poor, helping society, building infrastructure, educating others. Money has such great blessings, but unfortunately, money could also become the worst culprit. Money can become something that leads a person to do terrible things. Anything from stealing to, God forbid, worse. People have destroyed lives, destroyed societies because of their quest, because of their lust for money. So again, is money a good thing or a bad thing? Is the grape a good thing or a bad thing? This is the message of this sin. It isn't the thing. It isn't the object. It isn't the thing with which you did the sin or you didn't do the sin. It is you and your decision that can take this thing that God gave us and channel it, use it for the blessing that it's meant to be. Or God forbid, we can take that thing and unfortunately misdirect it and take it down to that black, undesirable place, that black hole, and bring it down all the way where it can lead us to the worst places. Think of a charitable society and then think of a criminal society. Both of them are using money. Both of them are motivated by currency. But each one is doing the exact opposite. And this is perhaps, again, another message from this story, which otherwise would not be any of our business. The Torah would not have to share it with us. The Torah would not have to tell us about this terrible sin. Moreover, that it really seems to shame Adam and Eve, these very special people who are in fact our ancestors. Why should we know something bad, something negative about our ancestors? And this is the reason. But now comes a very powerful question. We all know that after they sinned, what did God say to them? Well, because you sinned, because you did something so terrible, guess what's going to happen? Now, instead of going with my plan, that man lives forever like God lives forever, now I can't help it. It's out of my hands. These are my words. It's out of my hands. And now man is going to have to die. And therefore, he says he should live a limited life. A generation is going to come, a generation is going to go, and that's going to be the cycle till the end of time. Does this make sense? If you think about it. In plain simple words, it seems like God had a plan. God designed the world with a certain plan in mind. And we, the human being, who are we? Nothing. We came and we messed up his plan. We imploded the whole thing. And he had no choice. And he has to go with our plan, with plan B. We kind of like messed everything up for him. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even make sense that a God who is so capable, he made the entire universe. He couldn't foresee something like this. He couldn't prevent something like this. He couldn't make a plan that should actually work. Doesn't make sense. The way it seems, it just doesn't sit right. The answer is that in truth, we did not mess up God's plan. No, we have no ability to mess up God's plan. There's no way in the world that God desired the world to go on a certain path and we were able to change and switch that locomotive over to jump over to another track. That is just impossible. It's just not feasible. It doesn't make sense. The correct answer here is God all along planned it to be this way. He didn't trip us up. He allowed us to trip ourselves up. He gave us an open opportunity, meaning one that was balanced. We were able to go this way, we were able to go that way. We were able to go with the plan where man lives forever, where everything's perfect, or as we chose, evidently from what we did, from the way we behaved, that we're going to take this route. This route's not an easy route, but this route, at the end of the day, has a much greater and more impactful effect on the world and ourselves. In other words, the way God created us, he put us in a perfect place. Everything was just perfect. In fact, there was perhaps no room for sin. There was no room for negativity. There was no darkness even. In the Garden of Eden, there was no darkness. It was light. It was bright. Everything was perfect. You can see, you can hear, you can feel, you can enjoy. Everything was perfect. It was too perfect. What God really desired is for us to be in an imperfect world, or what seems to be an imperfect world, and have the ability to go one way or another, and have the ability to mess up, but at the same time have the ability to succeed. And that's what makes it meaningful. That's what makes for real, true, genuine free choice. And because of the free choice, every good deed that we do, every right action, every correct behavior is so valuable, is so meaningful. But you see, if God would have thrown us into such a world, there would be a problem. There would be a very powerful deficiency in essence. And that is that it would have come from God that we should be exposed to the bad. It would have been, so to speak, his fault, God's fault, that we have encounters with the negativity, that we have issues compelling us, issues that challenge us, issues that make it difficult for us to be the good people that we're meant to be, or the good people that we could perhaps be. And there would always be, so to speak, a little somewhat blame, room to blame the Almighty. Hey, it's not our fault. We didn't want to be here. We never had a choice. We were never given the option. And that's where God let us mess things up. Of course, it was his plan. He knew where the plan's going to go. This is what he really wanted all along. But he wanted it to be ours. We should own this. This should belong to us. Because ultimately what God did is he put the human being here with the intellectual capacity that we have, which is unparalleled by any other creature in the world, by any other being in this world. And he took us and put us in this world. He wanted us to be like him, to create, to generate, to innovate, to produce. No other creature in the world does. And if they do, it's to a very limited capacity, only to the limit of their survival mode, so to speak. We go beyond that. We generate, we create, we make things, we produce, we think, we're able to imagine, we're able to expand our horizons and go way, way beyond. But that is always challenged by the bad. In order for it to be ours, in order for it to be us, so to speak, us to possess all of this, and it should be, so to speak, in our ownership, God made room for us to mess up, for us to, so to speak, acquire this scenario, this situation, this reality as we have it. And what is really the purpose? This is the ultimate. This is the ultimate. I know perhaps what I'm saying sounds like a very, like, so to speak, religious dogma. It's not. If you think about it, it's practical. If you think about it, that quality of emerging, of constantly ascending from negativity or from the possibility of negativity, because it's an equal possibility. There's good, there's bad. And it's not like, okay, if one is smart, one is going to tend to go to the good side, and one is stupid or not as smart, not as intellectual, will tend to go to the bad side, because it's not true. You find in society sometimes some of the worst of criminals that they are just geniuses. Their IQ is such a high level. In fact, the schemes they come up with, the amazing plots that they pull off are just amazing. Many times they're 1 or 2 steps ahead of law enforcement, of some of the smartest minds in society. So they're not stupid. It's not inherent, and it's not automatic that if one is smart that they're going to go on the right path. And the opposite is also true. There's people who are not that smart, but they're, pretty good citizens. They do the right thing. They don't get into trouble. They have a sense of, proper, decent, well-mannered behavior. They don't have like a bad bone in them. So it's not because of our intellect or lack thereof. Rather, it's because of our choice. God wants us to continuously grow from that, quote, negativity, and continuously grow higher and higher and make the world a better place. If everything was perfect, if everything was just beautiful, there would be no motivation. There would be nothing compelling us, and therefore there would be nothing propelling us to try to make the world a better place, to try to improve, to try to constantly grow and make ourselves better and our surroundings and society, and therefore the entire universe, a better place. So all in all, if we look at it, I guess until now, perhaps we all assumed that the sin of the tree of knowledge, a terrible thing, just a unfortunate calamity, which at the surface it seems to be so. But when we look at it in the depth, it teaches us that this is the ultimate, so to speak, gift. I know it sounds a little difficult to express it that way, but ultimately this is a gift that we were given, that we're able to emerge, that we're able to rise up, that we're able to improve, and we're able to constantly grow. And this only came about because, not in spite of, but because of our little failure then, but continuously and perpetually, generation after generation, mankind has proven, with all our shortcomings, but mankind has proven that in spite of our shortcomings, we are able to grow and to become better and to become more aware and to become more sensitive and to become more connected to the Almighty Himself. So that wraps up more or less the 6th day of creation, the sin of mankind, the purpose of creation of mankind, but it also gives us a very good perspective. And in the next class, God willing, we should take some time to examine the concept of the Sabbath, the concept of the day of rest, the concept of a day of connection, as we will discuss in the next class.